Hey guys, my name is Gloria and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a book review for you, and this one was sent in to review for my blog. So it is called Ladies of the Canyon by Douglas Wood, and it's not a full-on horror novel, but it does get a little bit dark. There's some murderous intent going on, and it's more like sort of a mystery thriller kind of thing. But let's see what it's about. So the story begins with our protagonist in an AA meeting, a drug rehabilitation meeting, I think those are NA, and they're telling their story of how they wanted to become an actor. They got this great role as the main person in a show on Netflix, some sort of weird pretend Irish show about banshees. She plays a banshee in a Netflix show and does it with an Irish brogue, which I'm sure is great. But she had a Netflix show. She got heavily involved in drugs. They didn't kick her off the show, but she had to go into rehab, and she's on very thin ice at this point, and she's trying to get her life back together and trying to get away from all of these bad influences in her life. And while she's telling this story, she sees an older woman in the group as well, who seems very affected and is crying quite heavily while she's telling her story. And when the meeting finishes, this woman approaches her and she finds out that she is actually quite a big name in Hollywood, or used to be. She was a child star, and it's sort of well known that she had her own issues with drugs and all kinds of other things. But she has been sober for years now, and she was quite affected by her story. So she says, hey, if you need a place to stay, I have my big mansion. You can crash there for as long as you need, and I can help you keep away from all of these things. So she says, sure, why not? And she goes to stay. The place is a bit of a mess. The maid apparently quit and she hasn't replaced her yet. She goes back to her job, goes back to work, and is very happy about that. But as she gets to set, she is accosted by this journalist who says that she was called in to do an interview and wants to ask her all about her drug issues. And just in the nick of time, her new savior jumps in to say, no, I'm her manager, you can only speak to her through me. And she's very grateful for this. She's very grateful for her experience in the industry and knowing what to do. But it seems that she might have made a few enemies, especially on set and with the people working on her show. The show had to go on hiatus while she was in rehab, so a lot of people aren't very happy with her and her conduct, and sort of messing up their jobs for them as well. She ends up finding a joint in her bag in her dressing room, and she can't resist using it. She didn't put it there, she knows someone planted it there, and after taking it she realizes that there's some harder stuff in there that causes her to sort of lose it on set, and everyone is aware that she has used drugs again, and this is not good for her. So she becomes very paranoid about the people around her, her understudy, the other people in the cast, because she thinks they're trying to sabotage her. But luckily she has her great friend now to help her out. But things just keep going wrong for her. She eventually does get kicked off the show. She can't seem to get other jobs. She keeps getting pulled back into substance abuse. And it seems like somebody really has it in for her. And that's the general gist of it. It's about this young actress who got pulled way into this celebrity Hollywood life and is trying to rebuild herself afterwards. So it's a bit of a mystery, bit of a thriller. There's definitely somebody out to get her, out to mess up her life. I did kind of like it. I give it like a 3 or 3.5 stars. There were a lot of just name droppings just because of where it was set and stuff. I have to say I was pretty convinced of the ending in the beginning of the book. I knew where it was going pretty much. There were some really good scenes in it. and some interesting sort of twists where I thought it was going to go a different direction, but it stayed on the course I thought it was going to go on. There were a couple of odd scenes where near the end of the book something really terrible does happen to our protagonist, but there were a couple of scenes in the book where she becomes quite enamored with this black man, and I mention that because at one point he just sort of mentions that his brother was like gunned down by authorities, and it was just a horrific thing he had to go through, and then it's just glossed over and completely, it's just a shocker that kind of threw me off, and then we went back into her story. And at another time there is, I think it was a Filipino maid, I think, that she was talking to, and this maid says, yeah, my dad was murdered by our government for being a journalist and speaking the truth. And again, it's just glossed over. That was just a sentence to throw in about this sort of secondary background character that just kind of threw me, because it was so serious and so just jarring. I just thought that was odd, and it wasn't, I mean, there's definitely terrible things happen to the main character in the book, but those two were kind of like, are you trying to compare her situation to those situations? Or is that why they were mentioned? Like, it just seemed a bit odd. I didn't really know why those parts were mentioned, but it didn't throw me off the entire book or anything. It's interesting. I think the place where they live in the book is called Laurel Canyon, and I can't remember what that phenomenon is where you hear something brand new for the first time and then you continue to hear it. I think the next book I read after this, never heard of Laurel Canyon in my life. The next book I read had Laurel Canyon in it, and I was like, of course it does. But this is a sort of mystery thriller. It deals with drug addiction. It deals with a lot of bad decisions. Our protagonist isn't, you know, the perfect recovering addict who says no to everything. She falls down a lot, and she has to keep picking herself back up. I did really like her character. I think there was a lot of depth there, but I think maybe it could have gone a little bit more into how she started out as an actress and stuff. Things were sort of explained, but I just didn't feel like it went deep enough in that respect, with her mother being her manager and being sort of complacent and enabling her with all of her issues. But it was enjoyable. It was a short, enjoyable novel, and if you're looking for a bit of a murder mystery, not a murder mystery, but a bit of a dark thriller with some murderous intent behind it, you might want to check this one out. So that is my review of Ladies of the Canyon. If you like what I'm doing here, you can like and subscribe down below. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate everyone who's subscribed so far, and especially all the people who've subscribed in the last few weeks. There's been a few new ones, so I hope you like what's happening here, and I shall be back for the next video.